Samtastic, back with more Guild Wars 2. And how are you doing today, Battle Tabby? Oh yeah, soft and angry as usual. Today we are going to be talking about swiftness, stability, and combat, specifically in reference to doing jumping puzzles. So, the first thing that we want to look at is what it actually means to be in combat, because when you're in combat, your life doesn't refill passively, your weapon swapping has a much longer cooldown, pet swapping as well, and in addition to that, you actually move more slowly. And I know some people don't realize that, but it seems to be that you move about 33% faster when you're out of combat than you do when you're in combat. And so the easy way to tell whether or not you're in combat is right over by your skill bar, your life bar, all of that stuff. There is a yellow splash that appears once you start taking damage, and you can do that from falling. Falling damage will trigger it. Combat damage will trigger it. And then once you're in combat, any enemies that have tagged you, that have marked you as their opponent, are going to need to be killed, or you're going to need to break aggro with distance. And just because you're out of range of their attacks, they can't reach you, does not necessarily mean that that's going to break combat. You actually have to be a certain distance away from where they started out. So we'll go ahead and finish this guy off, and once we do, you can see that that yellow sort of splashy whatever, I don't really know how to describe it. See that it fades away and it's gone. So now we're out of combat and you can then move faster. The way that you deal with that decrease in movement speed when you're in combat is to apply swiftness. And now swiftness is a buff, a boon as they call them, that allows you to move 33% faster. And there are a couple of utility skills that the Guardian has that allow you to do that, but we're going to just stick with this staff skill 3, symbol of swiftness. And as you can see, well, if you can read it, swiftness provides a 33% movement speed increase, and it says 8.5 seconds there. That's normally 8 seconds. I have some traits that increase that slightly. So this is an easy one. You just throw it on the ground, and when you run through it, bam, you move faster. So that's easy enough. Stability as something that's actually a little bit more limited. I think as far as swiftness goes, the only class that doesn't seem to really have its own swiftness skill is the assassin, but there are a couple of ways to work around that. I know there's I think it's in the acrobatics trait line, something like that. They have an adept trait that allows you to move 33% faster when you're cloaked, which is generally just good enough anyway. And so stability is a little bit different from swiftness. Actually, it's very, very different. It is a boon that has you, as it says here, ignore control effects such as stun, knockback, launch, knockdown, sink, float, and daze. It says fear, but that's actually not true. Fear will still affect you even if you're using stability. Stability is great if you're in PvP because it can prevent you from getting knocked back by a whole lot of down skills when you're trying to stomp a player. So that's just a good one to have on hand. The number of classes that have access to stability that's useful, say in like as you'll need it in jumping puzzles, such as the one that we're going up to right now, it's fewer than all, for sure, but you do have classes like the Guardian and the Warrior, which have shouts that affect everyone in the area. So you can have a friend that's on a Guardian or a Warrior give stability to you, or you can just not try to do those jumping puzzles on a character that doesn't have access to a skill that provides stability. Other ones that don't say that they give stability but actually do are things like let's see, Plague on the Necromancer and Lich form, and the Elementalist. The Elementalist has access to Armor of Earth. Ranger can do Rampage as 1. The Warrior has Balanced Stance and Dolyak Signet, and the Guardian can do Stand Your Ground and Hollowed Ground. And the Necromancer's form skills that it has are different from a lot of the other ones. And in the way that it still allows you to jump while you're in them. I know the Avatar of, I think it's Avatar of Dwayna, will give you stability, but you're not going to be able to jump, and that's kind of a problem when it comes to doing jumping puzzles. So we're just going to be working with the Guardian's simple Stand Your Ground as it is right here, and we'll be using that to kind of show how stability can help you through some of these puzzles. If you notice these jumps here, you don't have to use swiftness as long as you're out of combat. They're basically spaced so that if you're not in combat, you can make all these jumps with great ease, and you're actually much more likely to overshoot those jumps and fall if you have swiftness on you. So it really frustrates me when people apply swiftness when I'm trying to do a jumping puzzle, because it really messes up the distance and timing. But you may recognize this gate here. If you don't, this is how you get to Windy Station. So I'm sorry if that's a spoiler and it makes you angry because you wanted to discover them all for yourself, but there you have it. And I'm not going to really give you any spoilers in this one beyond that, other than how to avoid getting frustrated by the wind that blows you on the ground. Simply by ignoring the fact that it's there. So we're going to go ahead and just push our way along and just get through here. Whee! This is a fun, unique puzzle in that if you fall, you actually teleport back to that gate where we just went through. And if you fall and drag along the edge of a wall, it can kill you and it'll teleport you back dead. But you'll figure that out if you screw up. So I've done that enough times. So here's the first section where stability comes into play. You can see these gusts of wind, and this is what happens if you try to like walk across it. Oh, it just blows you off. And now, at the same jump, we'll see what happens when we apply stability. Now, this is only about 5 seconds of stability, and so you're going to need to sort of move the moment that you activate it, otherwise you'll get blown off at the end. Using the Necromancer skills have the benefit of applying stability for a full 20 seconds. So in that case, you have enough time to make it across both of these. I don't in this case, but I'm actually going to be spending a whole lot more time on this than you are waiting for this, because once we get to the other side, there's an enemy that's over here that's going to attack. And so once that enemy attacks, it'll put us into combat. And so then there's the problem of trying to get across that last little jump that's there once we encounter that enemy. So we'll just run over, the enemy's going to drop down, and it's going to attack, and once it attacks and puts us into combat, it'll take 2 hits because I have Aegis. So there we go, we're in combat, and I just need to make that jump over there. So we'll say, oh, I don't want to fight this thing, I'll just make the jump. Whoa! And I missed. Stand your ground. So here we are, and this time I'm going to just defeat this vampire bat in single combat. And then once we do so, that will break us out of combat, and once again your movement speed will increase if I can continue pounding this thing with my giant hammer. And so once that yellow, if I tried to jump before that yellow splash disappears, then again I'm going to miss that jump, but once that disappears you get your movement speed increase and you can actually make that jump. Now the other option that you have when you end up in a combat situation, I mean, you always have the choice to just run straight past and go ahead and make that jump before you enter combat, but it's not always an option. Sometimes things will get their little hands on you before you have the option to do that. And so if there's an enemy that's like a veteran that maybe is too strong, or too many enemies and you just need to get past them, that's when you apply swiftness, because that makes up for you not having that speed bonus from being out of combat. And I know that was kind of a close call right there because it seemed to lag a second and apply it almost too late. But as you can see now, that yellow splash is still around my skills and things there. What are you doing? Get out of here. You're messing up my shot, photobombing it. So that bat is no longer in combat with me, so it would seem, but the game's still treating me as though I'm in combat, and so I'm going to still have that decrease to my movement speed, and if there were another jump that I needed to make, say, like right over here, then I wouldn't be able to do that unless I once again applied swiftness. So it's really, really important that you keep your eye on that and pay attention to that when you're running around in jumping puzzles to make sure that, that you're able to, well, make those jumps. So I personally have found that those, just understanding that movement mechanic has gotten rid of almost all of my frustration in jumping puzzles. And then this jumping puzzle by itself was extremely frustrating to me because of my lack of knowledge of swiftness when I first tried to make the attempt at this one, where you just get blown off of that every single time that you try. I think the very first time that I did it, I made it across by some fluke, but never again. And so essentially, that's that's pretty much, beyond that, you just have to sort of learn the spacing, like where your character's feet are, and each race is gonna be a little bit different. I mean, the Norn and the humans and the Sylvari are all pretty similar because they're all pretty humanoid, but the Asura are so teeny and they've got awkward animations on their feet movements, and the Char are just the it's a little bit difficult because when they are out of combat, they'll actually do that four-legged run, which looks kind of like that, but without the jumping. So just practice makes perfect on those, and the rest of the swiftness and stability should be able to help you avoid any other frustrations that you may have been having with jumping puzzles. So on that note, you should definitely click like, because this has been an amazing video and you know you liked it, and then also subscribe so that you can see when I make more videos that may or may not be helpful, because I do goofy stuff sometimes too. All right, so yeah, you will see me later.